Somewhere beyond the busiest edge of our day, the world begins to soften, not all at once, not like a switch turning off, but the way twilight arrives in small, gentle steps. A pale hush spreads across the trees. A last bird call thins into the distance. The air cools by a single degree, then another, until it feels like the night has placed a quiet hand on the landscape and asked everything to breathe a little slower. In that slowing, there are homes you rarely notice in daylight. Not houses with doors and windows, just patient places shaped by time. A hollow in an old oak where the wood has learned to cradle stillness. A tucked-away ledge on a barn beam where dust motes drift like tiny floating lanterns. A snug nook in a broken trunk, softened by feathers, leaf fibers, and the quiet insistence of comfort. And in these homes, owls make a life that fits the night. Not hurried, not loud, just steady, and deeply practiced in calm. Welcome to sleepy nature sleep, where the wild grows soft and curiosity becomes calm. Tonight, let your thoughts follow the rhythm of the earth, your breathing settle like evening wind, and your mind wander gently through the quiet wild. If you're listening from somewhere cozy, beneath a blanket, beside a dim lamp, or with the room already dark, consider this your gentle invitation to join our small community of night wanderers. You don't have to do anything special. Just return when you need a slower pace. And if you'd like to help this calm corner of nature grow, you can leave a quiet comment about where you're listening from, or what animal you'd like to drift alongside next. It's like leaving a soft footprint in the sand, small, simple, and warmly shared. And if you'd ever like to support this channel in an extra way, through a like, a subscribe, or any support option you use, thank you. It helps keep these stories steady and available, night after night, for anyone who needs them. Tonight, we're taking a calm tour of owl homes. We'll move slowly through hollow trees, old barns, rocky ledges, and hidden pockets of forest shade. We'll notice how an owl chooses a place, how a space becomes safe through stillness, and how the night itself seems to cooperate, offering quiet, cover, and a soft kind of privacy. So let your shoulders loosen. Let your jaw unclench. Let your breathing become unforced, like wind moving through tall grass without needing to arrive anywhere. And when you're ready, we'll step gently beneath the leaves and begin. Some questions arrive loudly, like a knock at the door, and some questions arrive the way moonlight arrives, quietly, without insistence, simply appearing across the shapes of things that were already there. Tonight's question is like that. It rests beneath the leaves, tucked into the darker spaces between branches, and it sounds simple at first, almost ordinary. What does a home truly offer in the wild? Not a human home, with keys and walls and bright overhead lights, but a natural home, a place chosen, or gently found, a place returned to, a place that holds the body still enough for breath to deepen. If you imagine an owl moving through the night, you might picture a wide sky and a soft glide, and then a pause, a quiet decision, a settling into a space that feels familiar, not dramatic, not hurried, just correct. And that is where the question begins to open. Because an owl's home might be nothing more than a hollow in an old tree, a dark curve in wood shaped by years of wind and rain, softened by time, made smooth by the slow work of nature. It might be a quiet ledge under a roof beam, a nook in a barn where shadows gather like folded blankets. It might be a sheltered pocket in rock, or a gentle dip among grasses. None of these places are built with blueprints, and yet they offer something real. They offer shelter, of course, simple protection from weather, from wind that wants to pull warmth away, from rain that taps softly on leaves. But the longer you sit with the question, the more you notice that shelter is only the beginning. A home also offers a kind of permission. Permission to stop moving. Permission to be unseen. Permission to let the muscles loosen and the eyes close, without needing to explain why. In the wild, a home is not about decoration or ownership. It is about fit. It is about quiet agreement between a creature and a place. The shape of the body and the shape of the hollow matching in a way that feels like rest. And when you think of it that way, the question begins to feel personal, but in a gentle manner. What does home offer you? Not necessarily a building, not necessarily a room. Maybe it's the weight of a blanket, the familiar sound of a fan, the softness of a pillow, the dimness of the light, the calm rhythm of your own breathing as it slows. Maybe home is simply the moment your mind stops scanning the day and begins to settle back into itself. So as we continue tonight, let this question float beside you like a quiet companion. What does a home truly offer in the wild? And what does it offer you right now as you rest? Before we step closer to any single owl home, let's first allow the landscape to appear, not sharply, not in bright detail, but softly, the way a scene forms when your eyes adjust tonight. The edges are gentle, the colors deepen. The world becomes more about shape, shadow, and calm. Imagine a wide place where several kinds of shelter exist at once. A forest line stands in the distance, dark trees rising like quiet columns. Beneath them, the ground is layered with leaves, old twigs, and moss that looks like velvet in moonlight. If there is wind, it moves slowly, like a long breath, lifting the smallest sounds and setting them back down again. Beyond the trees, the land opens into fields. Tall grasses lean and return, as if practicing the same soft motion over and over. A narrow path might curve through them, not a road exactly, more like a suggestion. The kind of route deer might follow, or the kind of space a night breeze prefers. And then, at the edge of the field, there is something human-made but quiet. A barn, a shed, an old wooden structure that stands with patient stillness. The boards have weathered into pale grays and soft browns. The roofline is simple. The inside smells faintly of dried hay and dust warmed by daytime sun, now cooling into night. Some owls rest in places like these, not because they want company, not because they need noise, but because the shape of the structure offers shade, height, and shelter. A beam becomes a perch, a corner becomes a room. A quiet, unused loft becomes a resting place where the dark feels stable. And scattered through all of it, forest, field, barn, there are small secret spaces, hollows in trunks, cracks in rock, nooks under roots. These are the kind of homes the land offers without announcement. You could walk past them in daylight and never notice, but at night, the world changes pace, and hidden things feel easier to imagine. This is the landscape before us, a place not designed for rushing, a place where the most important activities are slow, listening, resting, breathing, waiting for the right moment to move. As you picture it, let your own body borrow some of that pace. Let your shoulders lower as if they are settling into a soft nest of air. Let your breathing lengthen as if the night is widening around it. Let your thoughts drift like a thin mist moving across grass. In this kind of landscape, a home is not a destination. It is simply one calm point in a larger quiet world. And now, slowly, we can begin to step closer. Our first stop is not a grand place. It does not announce itself. It does not shine or call out. It simply exists patiently in the side of an old tree, an opening shaped like a small doorway into darkness, a hollow. If you stand near it, you might notice the tree's bark first, rough, ridged, patterned with age. In moonlight, those ridges look softer than they do in the day, as if the night smooths everything down. The hollow itself is a curve of shadow, a quiet pocket in the wood. The entrance is not perfectly round, not perfectly anything. Nature rarely uses straight lines. The edges are worn in gentle ways, made by years of weather and time, perhaps helped along by insects and the slow work of decay, turning old wood into softer layers. And inside, the darkness is deep, but not empty. It feels like a room that holds still air, a room that stays cool when the world is warm, and stays protected when the wind leans too close. For an owl, a hollow like this is more than a hiding place. It is a resting place shaped by patience. Owls do not need a home with many objects. They do not need bright color or clutter. Their comfort is often simple: the right amount of space, the right amount of cover, the right amount of quiet. Some hollows are high, tucked several meters above the ground, where branches act like soft gates. Others are lower, hidden behind leaves, moss, or vines. Each hollow has its own character, like a room with its own temperature and mood. If you imagine an owl returning here, you can picture it arriving with little sound, almost as if the air makes room for it. It settles inside, turning once, maybe twice, until body and hollow fit together in a calm, practical way. And then, stillness. That stillness is the true welcome of a hollow tree. It's the way the outside world becomes muffled, the way wind becomes less of a presence, the way even moonlight feels distant, touching only the edges of the doorway. In a hollow like this, time moves differently. Not faster or slower exactly, just quieter, less demanding. As you listen, allow your mind to borrow that feeling. Imagine your thoughts resting inside a hollow too, protected by a gentle boundary. No need to solve anything, no need to plan, just a soft enclosure where your attention can settle. The tree stands without effort. The hollow holds without trying. And you, right now, can rest in that same kind of calm, like a quiet guest welcomed by darkness, by wood, by the slow kindness of night. A hollow in a tree is never exactly the same twice. Even two hollows in the same forest can feel like different rooms, one tall and narrow like a quiet hallway, another wide and rounded like a small, dim lounge. And when an owl chooses a resting place, it isn't choosing a tree so much as it is choosing a particular kind of comfort, a hollow that feels just right. Not perfect in a polished sense, Nature doesn't do polished, but right in the way a pillow feels, right when you turn it to the cool side and your shoulders soften without thinking. One of the simplest details is size. Too small, and it feels tight in a way that doesn't allow settling. Too large, and it can feel open, with too much room for air to move around. Many owls seem to favor a middle comfort, space enough to turn and rest, space enough to tuck wings in close, space enough to let the body become still. Then there is the entrance. A hollow's doorway might be a rounded opening, or a long, uneven shape, or a small notch in a trunk. And the doorway matters because it sets the tone of the room. A smaller opening can feel like a curtain drawn. A larger opening can feel like a window left slightly open to the night. In gentle terms, it is a balance between privacy and breath. Inside, the hollow has its own quiet climate. The wood holds temperature differently than open air. Even on a cooler night, the interior can feel steadier, less changeable. And if there is wind outside, it often passes by like a whisper rather than arriving fully inside. Some hollows stay dry more easily than others. A slight tilt in the trunk, a small overhang of bark, the way the entrance faces away from prevailing rain, these tiny architectural details add up to a sense of calm. The hollow becomes a place where the world touches you less. And then there is texture. The inner walls of a hollow can be rough in places, smooth in others. Sometimes the base is softened by old material, feathers, bits of plant fiber, the gentle leftovers of rest. Not a thick mattress, more like a light lining, as if the forest itself offers a thin blanket. If you imagine an owl arriving, you can picture a quiet inspection that doesn't look like thinking, but like feeling. A brief pause, a turn, a settling, a sense of, yes, this is the right shape for stillness. As you listen, you might let your own space become just right, too. Not by changing anything, but by noticing what already helps you rest, the dimness, the warmth, the familiar air. And perhaps, like an owl in a hollow, you can let your body find the position that fits until comfort becomes simple and sleep feels natural. When people think of nests, they often imagine something carefully built, twigs woven like a basket, soft lining arranged like bedding, a tidy little masterpiece of nature. Owls, however, often prefer a quieter approach. Some owl homes are not built so much as gently used. A hollow tree is already a room, a ledge is already a shelf, a barn beam is already a perch. The owl arrives as if saying, "Thank you, this will do." And there is something deeply relaxing about that kind of simplicity. In many cases, the nest is minimal. In a tree cavity, the base might be a layer of old wood dust, small fragments of bark, or whatever the hollow naturally collects over time. In some places, you may find feathers, soft, light, almost accidental, as if calm itself had a texture. It is not fussy. It is not decorative. It is practical comfort, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. If you look closely at an owl's quiet housekeeping, it seems less about arranging and more about maintaining a steady feeling, a space that stays familiar, a place that smells like the same old wood, the same dry leaf, the same cool shadow. The home becomes a calm constant in a world that shifts by season. There is also a gentle humor in this. Human homes often gather objects the way pockets gather lint, small things, Extra things, just in case things. We stack pillows. We add blankets. We keep a chair that holds clothes like a friendly but overworked assistant. An owl's home, by comparison, is wonderfully uncomplicated. No extra furniture, no clutter, no piles of paperwork. Just one quiet room with one main purpose: rest. And when the owl settles in, the simplicity becomes part of the comfort. Nothing to manage, nothing to tidy, nothing to do except become still. If you imagine an owl arriving at its home, you might picture a soft landing, a turn, a gentle lowering of the body. The feathers loosen slightly as if exhaling. The eyes blink slowly, the head angles once, listening, not to search, but simply to know the night is behaving in its usual calm way. Then the owl becomes part of the shadow. This too can be an invitation for you. What if, for a few minutes, you practiced owl-style housekeeping in your mind, not by organizing your thoughts, not by solving your day, but by allowing your mental space to be simple. A quiet room, a dim hollow, a place where extra worries do not need to be stored. Just breath, just softness, just the comfort of having a place to rest without needing to improve it. There is a particular kind of quiet that lives inside old wooden buildings. Not the silence of an empty room in the daytime, but the softer silence that arrives at night when the world outside dims and the structure itself seems to settle into its own shape. A barn is like that. From the outside, it stands with simple lines, weathered boards, a roof that holds moonlight on its edges, a door that may hang slightly uneven, as if time has gently leaned on it. And inside, the air carries the faint memory of sun-warmed wood now cooling into evening. Some owls choose places like this. Not for brightness, not for company. Owls do not come seeking conversation, but because barns offer steady shelter. They offer height. They offer corners and beams that feel like quiet branches that never sway. High in the rafters, a beam becomes a calm resting place. Dust floats slowly in thin streams of moonlight, drifting like tiny, quiet snow. The space feels wide, but the shadows make it cozy, and the owl, perched in stillness, seems to fit naturally into the dim geometry of wood and darkness. A barn home has its own soundscape. The wind outside might brush the boards, but inside it becomes softer, filtered. A loose piece of wood might creak gently, not as a warning, but as a sleepy reminder that the building is old and comfortable with being old. Sometimes there is the faint rustle of hay. Sometimes only the distant quiet of night insects beyond the walls. And there is something peaceful in the idea that an owl can live near human places without needing to participate in human speed. It is a kind of parallel calm. The barn stands, the owl rests, the night continues. If you imagine the owl's perspective, the barn is not human. It is simply structure, a shelter-shaped opportunity, a place where rain stays outside, where wind loses interest, where darkness gathers in high corners like a soft blanket. This is also where gentle humor can appear, quietly, without sharpness. We build entire rooms for ourselves and still wander through them looking for the remote control. An owl finds a beam, and that is enough. An owl chooses a corner, and the night becomes orderly. No searching, no rearranging, just a quiet agreement with a good spot. As you listen, let your own room become barn-like in the best way. Stable, sheltered, dim. a place where outside noise doesn't need to follow you in. Imagine your thoughts perched somewhere high and safe, resting on a beam of calm. Imagine the day left outside like weather you no longer need to feel. And within this simple structure of night and breath, let your body do what it already knows how to do. Settle, soften, rest. In the wild, safety is not always something loud or visible. Often, it is something practiced quietly, like a habit, like a rhythm, like a way of being that makes the world feel less sharp. For owls, one of the softest rules is stillness. Not the kind of stillness that feels forced, as if holding your breath, but the kind that feels natural, like a leaf resting on water, like a branch pausing after the wind has passed. An owl's home supports this kind of stillness. A hollow tree does not ask for movement. A shadowed barn beam does not require adjustment. A cliff niche does not need rearranging. These places allow an owl to become quiet without effort. And in that quiet, the owl blends into the night as if it has always belonged there. Stillness is not empty. Stillness is a form of gentle presence. When an owl rests, its body seems to soften into the space. Feathers relax. The outline becomes less defined. Even the idea of animal fades a little, replaced by shape and shadow. In the dimness, the owl is not announcing itself. It is simply resting, and there is something soothing about how uncomplicated that is. In human life, stillness can feel like a luxury. We schedule it, we negotiate for it, we look for it at the end of long days. But in the owl's world, stillness is not a reward. It is a tool of comfort, a way to let the world pass by without needing to respond. The home, then, becomes more than shelter. It becomes a quiet partnership. The hollow offers darkness. The barn offers a high corner. The trees offer cover. And the owl offers stillness in return, settling into the space like a candle flame that does not flicker. If you listen closely to this idea, you may notice how your own body understands it. Your muscles already know how to soften when they feel safe. Your breath already knows how to lengthen when it is no longer rushed. Your thoughts already know how to drift when nothing is demanding an answer. So tonight, we can borrow the owl's softest rule, not as a task, not as something to achieve, but as a permission. Let the stillness arrive in small ways. A slow release in the shoulders, a gentle unclenching of the hands, a longer exhale that feels like setting down something you didn't realize you were holding. And if a thought wanders through, something from the day, something unfinished, let it pass like wind passing the entrance of a hollow tree. It does not need to enter. It can simply move on, leaving the room of your mind quiet and calm again. Because the softest security in nature is often this: a place that holds you, a body that settles, a night that asks nothing. Some rooms change the way sound behaves. A wide open space lets noises travel freely. A bare wall makes echoes bounce around. But a sheltered space, a hollow tree, a barn loft, a niche in rock can soften sound, shape it, and hold it gently. Owls live in a world where listening matters, and their homes are, in a way, listening rooms. Imagine a hollow in an old trunk. Outside, the wind moves through branches, and leaves make a soft, restless whisper. Somewhere farther off, an insect keeps a steady rhythm. A distant bird might offer a final note, but inside the hollow, those sounds arrive differently, muted, filtered, softened. The wood absorbs some of the sharpness. The curved walls hold the air. The entrance acts like a curtain, letting the world in only a little. And for an owl resting inside, that softened soundscape becomes comfort. Not silence, never total silence, but a gentle arrangement of noise into something quieter and easier to live within. A barn loft has its own version of this. The walls and beams take the wind and break it into smaller pieces. A few faint creaks may appear, like sleepy punctuation marks. Dust drifts slowly, and the air feels thick in a soothing way, as if sound has to move through velvet to reach you. Even rock niches can feel like this. Stone does not flutter or sway. It holds still. It reflects sound in a low, quiet manner, making the outside world feel farther away. A cliffside shelter can turn the night into a deep hush, the kind that makes you instinctively lower your voice, even if you're alone. Owls, resting in these places, are not listening for entertainment. They are simply aware. Their world is made of small cues, a shift in wind, a change in insect song, the faint movement of something beyond the entrance. But none of this needs to feel tense. It can feel like a gentle awareness, like noticing rain without needing to count the drops. And this, too, can be a gift for you tonight. Because your own room, wherever you are listening, can become a listening room as well. Notice the quietest sounds around you, the hum of air, the distant hush of a city or neighborhood settling, the tiny movements of a building cooling at night. You don't need to label them. Just let them exist, like soft background music that asks nothing. As you listen, allow the sounds to feel rounded, not sharp. Let them drift through your awareness and dissolve like mist moving through trees. And if your mind is noisy tonight, if thoughts clatter a little, imagine those thoughts entering an owl's hollow tree. Inside that space, even busy sounds soften. Even sharp edges blur. Even the mind learns how to become quieter, not by force, but by the gentle design of rest. In the daytime, neighborhood often means closeness. People living beside people, footsteps crossing, voices overlapping, lights turning on and off like small signals of activity. But in the owl's world, a neighborhood can be something quieter. Homes can be close, and life can still feel spacious. Imagine a stretch of land where several owl homes exist within the same broad area. A hollow tree in the forest line, a barn beam near the field, a rocky niche at the edge of a low hill. None of these homes announce themselves. They simply hold their own quiet. And the owls who use them do not need to gather like a crowd. They exist in parallel, like calm notes in the same slow song. You can picture it as a map made of soft points. Each point is a resting place. Between them, there is open air, moonlit grass, shadowed branches, and gentle distance. In such a neighborhood, privacy is not built with fences. It is built with space and timing. An owl can return to its home without needing to greet anyone. Another owl can rest a short distance away, still fully alone. Their lives can share the same night without blending into each other. And this is one of the quiet beauties of nature. Togetherness does not always mean closeness. Sometimes it simply means existing within the same landscape, each creature following its own rhythm. each home holding its own pocket of calm. If you listen, you might imagine the sounds of this neighborhood. Not loud conversation, but the occasional soft call in the distance, the faint rustle of wings passing through air, the steady chorus of insects that continues regardless of who is listening, and above it all, the sense that the night is wide enough for everyone. There's a gentle humor in it too. Humans often feel the need to fill space with interaction. We wave, we talk, we check in, we signal our presence. Owls seem to say, very politely, hello, by simply not disturbing anything. A respectful quiet, a calm coexistence. And perhaps that is something you can borrow tonight. You do not need to be on. You do not need to perform wakefulness. Even if you live near others, even if the world around you contains many lives, you can still rest in your own quiet pocket. Imagine your bed, your room, your listening space as one gentle point on the map, a small home inside a larger night. Other homes exist elsewhere, other rooms, other beds, other resting places, each with their own soft hush. And in this shared neighborhood of sleep, no one needs anything from you. You are allowed to be quiet. You are allowed to be distant from the day. You are allowed to rest while the wide night continues calmly around you. Before we move deeper into the night, we can pause here, right at the edge of an owl's home, where the outside world still brushes the doorway and the inside world begins to feel sheltered. A threshold is a gentle idea. It is not quite in and not quite out. It is the space where you slow down naturally, the way you might lower your voice when entering a quiet room, even if no one asked you to. Imagine a hollow tree again. The opening is dark, soft-edged, irregular in the way nature prefers. If moonlight touches it, it only touches the rim, leaving the inside as a calm depth. The air near the entrance feels slightly cooler, as if the hollow holds its own temperature, its own patience. Now imagine standing there, not in a busy way, not in a searching way, just standing and noticing. Notice how the world sounds different at the threshold. Outside, the leaves make their gentle whisper. A distant insect keeps time. A light breeze moves through branches. But at the doorway, those sounds become quieter, as if they are already taking off their shoes. This pause is not about doing anything. It is about letting your body learn what the night is offering. A slow permission, a small easing. If an owl were arriving now, it would not rush through the opening like a person late for a meeting. It would come with the calm confidence of a creature that trusts its place. A soft glide, a quiet landing, a moment of still attention, and then a simple, unhurried entry into rest. You can borrow that pace. Let your breath be your guide. Inhale gently, as if you are standing in cool forest air. Exhale slowly, as if you are stepping toward shelter. Each breath becomes a small threshold of its own. Outside the breath and inside the breath. Movement and stillness. Day and night. And if the mind offers you thoughts, little pieces of the day, conversations, lists, plans, let them hover at the doorway. You don't need to invite them in. You can treat them like wind, present, temporary, passing. The threshold is a place where you can decide kindly what enters your resting space. You may notice that your body already understands this. Your shoulders can lower as if entering a quiet room. Your jaw can soften as if the night itself has asked it to rest. Your hands can become heavier, more relaxed, as if they are no longer needed for holding anything. Just for a moment, linger here, at the edge, at the doorway, at the calm line between wakefulness and sleep. And then, in your own time, we'll step forward again, slowly, into the deeper rooms of owl living, where everything feels a little quieter, a little dimmer, a little more ready for rest. There is something quietly soothing about being above the ground, not in a grand, towering way, just enough height to feel a little separated from the busy surface of things. A branch above eye level, a beam in a dim barn, a hollow halfway up an old trunk. For many owls, height is part of comfort. It is not about dominance or drama. It is simply about choosing a place where the world feels softer and less immediate. A place where the ground sounds are distant, where the air is calmer, where the view, if the owl opens its eyes, includes more shadow and less detail. A hollow high in a tree is like that. The trunk rises steadily, and the entrance sits in a place the wind cannot easily shove into. Around it, branches act like quiet guardians, forming layers of cover. Leaves gather and overlap, turning moonlight into a scattered shimmer rather than a bright beam. Inside, the hollow feels steady. The tree itself becomes a support, solid, unmoving, dependable, and the owl resting there can relax into that dependability as if the entire forest is holding the night in place. In barns, height comes in the form of rafters. A high beam is not glamorous, but it is reliable. It stays in the same position every night. It does not sway. It does not collapse into clutter. It simply offers a narrow, quiet space where an owl can perch and rest in darkness, with the wide room below left to shadows. And in rocky landscapes, height becomes a ledge, a shelf of stone tucked beneath an overhang, a niche that sits above open air, a small protected place where the wind loses interest before it arrives fully. What height offers gently is distance, a little space between the resting body and the world's movement. And you may recognize that desire. When you lay down at night, you're not trying to conquer the day. You're simply trying to move away from it, to step out of its noise, to create a small separation where you can breathe and be unobserved. So if height is comfort for an owl, perhaps you can imagine comfort for yourself as a kind of inner height. Not literal elevation, but a feeling of being slightly above the day's demands, slightly removed from the unfinished tasks, slightly distant from the mental chatter that tries to pull you back into doing. Picture your bed as a soft ledge. Picture your blanket as a canopy of leaves. Picture your breath as the steady trunk of a tree, supporting you without effort. And with each slow exhale, allow yourself to rise a little farther away from anything that feels heavy. Not by escaping, just by resting, just by returning to the simple truth. The night is allowed to be quiet, and you are allowed to be quiet inside it. A doorway is a small thing, but it changes everything. It decides what enters. It decides what stays out. It shapes the feeling of the space behind it, like a frame shapes the calm of a painting. In owl homes, the entrance often matters as much as the room itself. A hollow tree may have an opening no wider than a quiet pause. A barn corner may be hidden behind a beam. A rock niche may be tucked beneath an overhang. These entrances are not designed to impress. They are designed, if we can use that word, for peace. A smaller opening does something gentle to the world. It reduces the wind. It dims the light. It softens sound. It turns a space into a private pocket where the night becomes quieter by a few degrees. Imagine standing outside a hollow with a narrow entrance. You can see darkness inside, but you cannot see much detail. The room beyond feels protected simply because it is not fully revealed. The hollow keeps its calm the way a closed curtain keeps a room dim and cool. For an owl, this matters. A small entrance means the inside air stays more still. The temperature stays steadier. The outside world becomes less intrusive. Even the sense of movement beyond the doorway feels distant, like hearing rain while safely indoors. And there is a simple, sleepy beauty in this idea. Peace is often created by reducing openings, not shutting life out completely, just narrowing the ways it can rush in. If you think about your own resting place, you may already do this. You turn down a bright screen, you close a curtain, you lower the volume, you dim the room. You create, in your own way, a smaller entrance for the day's noise. So as we drift through this story, consider the entrance to your mind tonight. What is the doorway like? Is it wide open, letting every thought wander in and set up camp? Or can it be gently narrowed, like a hollow tree doorway, so only the softest things pass through? You don't need to force the mind to be silent. You don't need to lock the door. You can simply make the entrance smaller by returning attention to breath, to softness, to the slow comfort of this moment. Inhale, and the doorway becomes calm. Exhale, and it becomes quieter. With each breath, imagine you are drawing a curtain across the day, not with urgency, but with kindness. The world can wait outside. It can keep moving without you. And within your small, peaceful interior, within your hollow of night, rest can arrive naturally, like an owl settling behind a doorway made for quiet. In the day, camouflage can sound like strategy. At night, it can feel like comfort, because in moonlight, the world becomes simpler, less about bright color and more about gentle pattern. Bark turns into a soft mosaic of grays and browns. Moss becomes a dark velvet layer. Shadows stretch and blur until everything looks quietly connected. Owls belong to this kind of night. Their feathers carry the same calm palette as tree trunks and old wood. Speckled creams, soft browns, smoky grays, colors that do not demand attention. Patterns that do not shout. Even when an owl is present, it can feel as if the forest is simply continuing. And this is not only helpful, it is soothing. Camouflage is like being wrapped in the landscape, a kind of natural blanket. Imagine an owl resting near the entrance of a hollow tree. Its body is still, and its feathers are arranged like layered leaves. In the dimness, the owl's outline doesn't stand apart. It blends into bark and shadow, as if it has been quietly painted into the scene. In a barn, an owl's soft tones match beams, rafters, and weathered boards. The wood has the same sleepy hues. Dust floats through moonlight like slow snow. The owl sits in a corner, and the corner feels complete. In rocky places, an owl's speckling mirrors stone. Light and dark scatter across feathers the way they scatter across cliff faces. Even the night seems to agree. Yes, you belong here. There's a gentle lesson in that belonging. Owls do not force themselves into the landscape. They fit, they harmonize, they allow the world to hold them without needing to be noticed. And if you let that idea sit with you, it can feel like an invitation. What if tonight you did not need to stand out? What if you did not need to solve, achieve, or perform? What if you could blend into your own quiet space the way an owl blends into bark and moss? You can picture your room as a small nighttime landscape. Your blanket becomes a layer of soft moss. Your pillow becomes a smooth patch of bark. The dimness becomes moonlight, gentle enough to see by, quiet enough to rest within. And your mind, instead of standing apart, can soften into the background. If a thought arrives, it can drift through like a shadow passing across leaves. It does not need to stay. It does not need to be chased. It can simply move on, leaving you blended into calm again. Camouflage, in this sense, is not hiding out of fear. It is resting out of wisdom. It is knowing that the quietest nights are the ones where nothing asks you to be more than you already are. So settle into your own colors tonight. Muted, soft, night-friendly, and let the world, for a little while, hold you gently in its shade. A hollow tree is a kind of slow miracle, not a sudden event, not a moment, more like a long conversation between tree and time. A tree grows for years, sometimes decades, layer by layer, ring by ring, quietly thickening its trunk, lifting its branches, holding leaves up to sun and rain. It stands through seasons that repeat like lullabies, spring returning, summer lingering, autumn fading, winter resting, and during all that time, small changes begin. A branch may break and leave a scar. Water may settle into a crevice. Insects may visit, not as invaders, but as part of the forest's gentle recycling. Fungi may soften old wood, turning rigid fibers into something more yielding, more hollow-ready. This is not a story of damage. It is a story of transformation. Because in nature, softness often arrives through time. A hollow is not built the way people build rooms. It is formed the way a river forms a smooth stone, slowly, patiently, with no rush to finish. Rain, wind, and age do their quiet work. The tree continues standing, even as parts of it become lighter inside. And then, one day, there is space, a room, a sheltered pocket, a place where darkness can gather and remain. Owls and other creatures benefit from this old wood wisdom. The forest creates shelter without needing to be asked. It offers rooms shaped by decades of weather, rooms that feel natural because they are natural, and the longer a tree stands, the more likely it is to offer these hidden spaces, like a wise elder who has learned how to hold quiet for others. If you imagine walking through a forest at night, you can picture these living shelters scattered throughout. Hollows here and there, each one unique, each one a calm possibility. Some are deep and narrow, some are wide and shallow, some are tucked high, some lower, some almost invisible until you're close. And each one exists because time kept moving. Not quickly, not loudly, just steadily. There is something restful about recognizing this. So much of human life asks for fast results, immediate improvement, quick answers. But the forest does not live that way. The forest trusts long processes. The forest allows things to become ready in their own pace. A hollow tree teaches that lesson quietly. It says, comfort can be grown slowly. Shelter can be formed over years. A safe space can emerge without forcing it. So tonight, if you feel like you are still becoming, still learning, still settling, still finding your rhythm, let the hollow tree be a gentle companion. You do not need to be finished to be worthy of rest. Even a tree that is changing on the inside can be a shelter. Even a life that is still unfolding can hold calm. And right now, you can let the night hold you the way the forest holds its hollows, patiently, steadily, softly. If you could step into an owl's home, you might be surprised by what is not there. No stacks, no shelves, no extra objects, just in case, no cluttered corners, no drawers filled with items that once seemed useful and are now simply present. An owl's home is often simple in the purest way. A hollow tree is mostly air and darkness. A barn beam is mostly wood and shadow. A rock niche is mostly stone and stillness. The owl arrives and rests, and the place remains uncomplicated. And there is something gently humorous about this, especially for humans. Because humans are talented collectors. We collect mugs, we collect cords, we collect old receipts that we swear contain important information. We collect pillows, and then we add another pillow, and then we wonder why the bed looks like it's preparing for a pillow convention. An owl does not do this. An owl seems to say, with quiet confidence, one good spot is enough. A safe shape, a sheltered corner, a dim interior. That is the whole design. And because there is less to manage. The owl's home does not ask the owl to organize. It does not ask the owl to maintain appearances. It does not invite endless decisions. It simply holds stillness. Minimalism, in this sense, is not a trend. It is comfort through simplicity. It is the idea that rest becomes easier when there are fewer demands in the space around you. If you picture an owl settling into a hollow, you can imagine the moment it stops doing and starts being. A gentle turn, a soft tuck of wings, a quiet closing of eyes, no rearranging of furniture, no checking of messages, no last-minute tasks, just the body resting because the home is ready. And for you tonight, the owl's minimalism can become a small, kind suggestion. Your mind may be carrying many objects right now. Unfinished thoughts, plans, worries, reminders, conversations. They can feel like a crowded room in your head with too many items on the floor. So what if, just for a little while, you practiced owl-style simplicity? Not by solving anything, not by cleaning up your whole life, but by reducing what you hold in this moment. Let the day's list set itself down. Let tomorrow's concerns wait quietly outside. Let your mind become one dim, spacious room with only one purpose: rest. Breath in, breath out. A little less, a little softer, a little quieter. And as your thoughts thin out like mist over a field, you may find that sleep does not need to be chased. It simply arrives naturally in a life with fewer things, at least for tonight. If you could wander quietly through the night and peek, respectfully, from a distance, into the resting places of different owls, you would notice something comforting. There is no single right home. There are many good homes, each shaped by a different landscape, a different body, a different way of living in the dark. Some owls prefer the deep calm of tree cavities. Others are content with a sheltered ledge. Some settle into abandoned nests built by other birds, as if accepting a hand-me-down that still holds warmth. Others rest near open spaces where grasses move like slow curtains. It can feel like touring a neighborhood of gentle styles, each one quietly practical. A barn owl, for instance, often seems comfortable in human-adjacent places, barns, lofts, rafters, where there is steady cover and a dependable structure that does not sway. The space is dim, the air is still, and the shadows are plentiful. It is like choosing a quiet room in a large old house that never asks questions. A tawny owl may favor wooded places where hollows are abundant. A tree cavity becomes a familiar room that holds the same scent of bark and leaf. The forest itself becomes a kind of hallway, connecting one calm space to another. A snowy owl, living in open northern landscapes, may rest on the ground, where the world is wide and pale and quiet. The idea of a home shifts here, not a cavity or a building, but a chosen place of stillness in an open expanse, where the owl's body blends into the soft patterns of the land. Some owls use burrows, spaces close to the earth where the temperature remains steadier and the wind feels less direct. In these cases, home can feel like being tucked under the blanket of the ground itself. And then there are owls that choose cliff faces and rocky niches where stone becomes shelter. A small overhang is enough. A narrow recess becomes a private corner. The night air moves outside, but inside the niche, it quiets. This variety is soothing because it mirrors something true about rest. Rest is not one size fits all. Some people sleep best in complete darkness, some like a faint glow. Some want silence. Some want a steady background sound. Some feel comfort in being tucked in. Others feel comfort in having space. Nature allows for this. Owls allow for this. They find what fits, and they let it be enough. So as we continue, you might let yourself notice what kind of room your body wants tonight. More warmth or more coolness, more blanket or more air, a different pillow angle, a softer breath. No need to make it perfect. Just let it be fitting. Because the night does not ask for perfection. It only asks that you settle in the way that suits you and allow rest to arrive in its own gentle style. Not all comfort is found high in the branches. Some comfort is found close to the earth, where the world feels steady and the air carries the soft scent of soil and grass. For certain owls, ground-level shelters can be deeply practical and surprisingly cozy in a quiet, natural way. A burrow is a simple form of shelter. It does not need decoration. It does not need height. It only needs to be tucked enough to soften the wind, shaded enough to dim the light, and shaped enough to hold stillness. If you imagine standing near a burrow entrance at night, you might see grasses leaning over it like gentle curtains. The opening is modest, as if the land is keeping its interior private. The earth around it feels cool. The air inside feels steadier, like it has been resting there for a long time. In such a shelter, the temperature can be more even than outside. The ground holds on to coolness during warm times and releases faint warmth during cooler times. It is a slow exchange, almost like the land is breathing, and there is a particular calm that comes from that steadiness. Above ground, wind changes quickly, sounds travel freely, shadows shift, but near the earth, things can feel quieter, less dramatic. Even the night seems to settle. If an owl uses a burrow, it is not making a statement. It is choosing a simple, quiet solution, a protected pocket where the body can rest, where the world feels less exposed. And you may recognize the comfort of that idea. Sometimes, what we want most at night is not height or view. Sometimes, we want to feel tucked in. Ground-level calm is the feeling of being gently held. It is the feeling of a blanket that stays in place. The feeling of a room with soft corners. The feeling of being safe without needing to be seen. So as we linger with the idea of burrows, you can let your own bed become a kind of ground shelter. Your mattress is the earth, steady, supportive, reliable. Your blanket is the grass, lightly draped, gently covering. Your room becomes a small burrow of quiet, where outside sounds arrive softened, where the day's brightness cannot easily reach. And if the mind tries to wander outward, into plans, into noise, into tomorrow, bring it back down, gently, like returning to the cool calm of the ground. No urgency, just a soft return. A burrow is not glamorous, but it is effective in the way that matters. It holds rest. And tonight, you can let yourself be held too, close to stillness, close to quiet, close to sleep. Stone has a different kind of calm. Wood breathes and bends, leaves flutter, grass sways, but stone simply stays where it is, holding its shape through night after night. And for some owls, that steadiness becomes home. A rocky ledge can be as simple as a shelf beneath an overhang, a shallow recess in a cliff face, a niche where the wind cannot push in fully. Not a large room, just enough space for a body to settle and for darkness to gather. If you imagine approaching such a place at night, the air feels cooler. The stone holds the day's temperature for a while, then slowly releases it into the dark. The surface is firm, quiet, almost thoughtful. The stars above feel clearer in rocky landscapes, as if the sky enjoys open, stony places. A niche under an overhang creates a small boundary. Rain may fall elsewhere, but here it arrives softened. Wind moves along the cliff, but inside the niche it becomes a faint, passing presence. Sound behaves differently too, sometimes echoing lightly, sometimes disappearing into open air. And in that gentle stability, an owl can rest. There is no need for a nest with many materials. The shape of the stone is enough. The angle of the overhang is enough. The darkness in the recess is enough. Stone homes feel ancient, even when they are simply part of the landscape. They remind us that shelter has existed long before we gave it names, that the world has always offered places to pause, to settle, to be still. And there's something reassuring about that. When life feels complex, stone is simple. When thoughts feel busy, stone is quiet. When the day feels demanding, stone offers a surface that asks nothing. So tonight, you might let yourself imagine a small stone niche for your mind, a calm hollow in a cliff, a place where your thoughts can rest without rolling around, a place with firm boundaries, where noise does not easily enter. where wind does not insist, where the night can remain wide and peaceful outside while you stay protected within. Your breath can become the rhythm of that place. Inhale, like cool air touching stone. Exhale, like warmth easing into a sheltered recess. And if you need a sense of steadiness, let stone offer it, not as something heavy, but as something reliable, a quiet certainty, a simple, patient presence beneath a sky full of slow-moving stars. And in that steady shelter, sleep can feel less like an event and more like a natural settling, like the night itself finding its place and becoming still. Weather does not knock before it arrives. It simply moves through the world, sometimes gently, sometimes persistently, touching leaves, shifting air, tapping on wood, sliding along stone. And in the owl's life, weather is less like an enemy and more like a quiet roommate, always present, always changing the mood of the house. An owl's home, then, is partly about understanding weather without needing to argue with it. A hollow tree is a good example. The entrance might face away from the prevailing wind. The curve of the trunk might create a natural overhang. The bark might shed water like a slow umbrella. Even the height of the hollow can matter, placing it above damp ground air that feels cooler and heavier. All of these details are gentle ways of staying dry, not by battling rain, but by choosing a place where rain is less likely to enter. In a barn, the roof does most of the work. Rain can fall outside in steady patterns, and the owl can remain tucked high in the rafters, listening to it as a soft percussion. The building becomes a simple agreement. Weather stays outside, rest stays inside. And on cliffs or rocky ledges, an overhang becomes a small miracle. A few inches of stone can turn a windy night into a calmer one. A tucked niche can transform rain from a direct presence into a distant sound. The owl doesn't need a large space, only the right angle, the right sheltering lip of rock, the right corner where the wind loses interest. There is something soothing about this practicality. Nature does not always remove discomfort. It often reduces it. It turns sharp wind into a softer breeze. It turns heavy rain into a faint tapping. It turns open exposure into partial cover. And in those small reductions, comfort becomes possible. You might bring this idea into your own night. If weather is your roommate too, if it's raining outside or the air is shifting or the temperature is changing, let it simply be present without becoming important. Imagine your room as a hollow tree. The walls around you are thick bark. Your blanket is an overhang. Your bed is the protected floor of a quiet cavity where the air stays still. Outside, the weather can move freely. It can do its gentle work. It can pass through the world in its own way. But inside your resting space, it becomes background, soft and distant, like a story told from far away. And perhaps that is one of the quiet arts of sleep, not controlling everything, not forcing the night to be perfectly still, but choosing a position, a posture, a breath, where the world's movement becomes less direct and your body can remain calm within it. So let the weather be the roommate it already is. Let it pace quietly in the hallway outside, and let your mind stay tucked in the warm, dry room of rest. Home is not only a place you can see, it is often a place you can recognize without looking. A familiar air, a certain softness, a quiet combination of small signals that tells the body without words, "You are here again." In the owl's world, scent is one of those subtle signals. We often think of owls as creatures of vision and hearing, big eyes, patient listening, but the natural world is layered, and familiarity can be carried through many senses at once. A hollow tree has a smell: old wood, slightly sweet, slightly dry, bark warm during the day and cooling at night, the faint green hush of moss, a whisper of leaf dust. These scents are not strong like perfume. They are gentle and close, like the smell of a book that has been sitting quietly on a shelf for years. A barn has a different scent: dry hay, wood, dust. The lingering warmth of sun caught in beams and released slowly after dark. It is a steady smell, one that doesn't change much night to night, and that steadiness can feel like comfort. Even stone shelters have a scent, though it is subtle: cool mineral air, dampness far below the surface, the quiet smell of night wind moving past rock. An owl returning to its resting place may not think about these scents, but its body recognizes them. The familiar combination becomes part of what makes the home feel right. And this can be soothing to consider, because humans are guided by subtle signals too. You might notice how your own home smells at night: the fabric of your blanket, the clean scent of sheets, the faint trace of soap or lotion, or the air in your room that is uniquely yours. Even if you don't consciously focus on it, your nervous system receives it like a quiet message. This is familiar. This is safe. This is where you rest. So tonight, you can let scent become part of your settling. Nothing you need to do. No need to change anything. Just notice. Perhaps the air is cool. Perhaps it is warm. Perhaps it carries the faint scent of night rain outside, or the dry steadiness of indoor air. Take a slow breath in, as if you are gently reading the room with your lungs. Then exhale, as if you are letting your body respond. Yes, I know this place. And if your mind feels a little restless, scent can help anchor it, because scent is immediate and quiet. It doesn't ask for analysis. It simply exists. Imagine for a moment that you are an owl returning to a familiar hollow. The night outside is wide, but inside the entrance, the air smells like home. That scent becomes a soft doorway, guiding you inward without effort. And perhaps you can let your own room offer the same. A subtle signal, a gentle recognition, a calm reminder that the day is done, and your body is allowed to settle into the familiar peace of where you sleep. There is a calm beauty in routines that do not try too hard, the kind that are not rigid, not strict, not demanding, just familiar motions that the body learns and repeats because they feel right. An owl's nighttime routine is like that. If you imagine an owl returning to its resting place, it does not arrive with a long list of tasks. It does not fuss. It does not make a ceremony of the moment. It simply comes home. A glide through the dark, a soft landing, a pause that looks like listening, but feels more like checking that the night is behaving as expected. Then a quiet settling. Maybe the owl turns once, adjusting its position. Maybe it tucks its wings closer, feathers loosening like a soft exhale. Maybe the head angles slightly, not scanning for trouble, but noticing the familiar sound of wind passing leaves, the steady chorus of insects, the quiet air inside a hollow. or under a beam. And then the routine completes itself in the simplest way: stillness. Owls do not need to earn rest. They do not argue with the idea of being tired. They accept the rhythm of night as something to move with, not against. In that way, their routine feels like a lesson in gentle efficiency. Do what is needed, then stop doing. And you may find that this is exactly what your own body wants at the end of the day. Not more effort, not more thinking, just a small sequence of familiar signals that tell you it is time. Perhaps you already have your own nighttime routine. Dim the lights, adjust the blanket, find the cool side of the pillow. Take one slow breath that feels deeper than the last. If your routine is imperfect, that's fine. Owls are not perfectionists. They are comfort seekers. So tonight, you can treat your own settling like an owl returning to a hollow. No urgency, no performance, just a gentle, practiced arrival into rest. Imagine your bed as the owl's chosen perch, your room as the sheltered cavity, your blanket as the quiet darkness that holds you. And as you settle, allow small movements to be the last movements you need. A slight shift of shoulders, a soft loosening of hands, a slow exhale that feels like closing a door, not with a click, but with a quiet, padded hush. Then, like an owl, you can let the routine end where it naturally ends. In stillness, in calm, in the simple comfort of doing nothing more. An owl's home is not an isolated point. It is a calm center, yes, but it is also connected quietly to a wider map of familiar places. A resting hollow is part of a larger pattern, the way a heart is part of a body, the way a still pond is part of a watershed. If you imagine the owl's world from above, it looks less like a single location and more like a gentle network. There's the home, a hollow tree, a barn beam, a cliff niche, a sheltered burrow, a place where the owl can settle and let the night hold it. And then, around that home, there are other places that feel familiar. A favorite perch on a branch where the air moves slowly and the view feels open. A fence post that stands quietly at the edge of a field. A high limb where moonlight filters through leaves in soft, scattered patterns. These are not destinations in the human sense. They are simply known points in the landscape, places that the body recognizes. Between these points, the owl travels through corridors of night. Tree lines act like gentle pathways. Hedgerows become soft borders. Open grasslands widen into calm spaces where the wind can move without obstacles. The owl's route is not marked, not labeled, not announced. It exists as familiarity, like a route you could walk with your eyes half closed because you know every turn. In this wider map, the home is the quiet anchor. It is the place where movement ends and rest begins. And because it is an anchor, it makes the rest of the landscape feel easier. The night can be wide and full of subtle motion, and yet there is always a return point, always a place where the owl can settle again. There is something deeply restful about this concept, a home that belongs to a larger rhythm. It is not a fortress, it is not a cage. It is simply one calm note within a broader, gentle song. And if you allow that idea to touch your own life tonight, you may notice your own map as well. You have places that feel familiar to your body, the shape of your bed, the angle of your pillow, the weight of a blanket. Perhaps a particular side you prefer, a position your shoulders like, a small habit that signals rest. These are your quiet anchor points. So as you settle, you might picture your room as part of a wider landscape too. One calm shelter within a large night. The world outside continues softly, but you do not need to follow it. You are at the anchor now, and here in this gentle center, your breath can slow, your thoughts can loosen, and sleep can feel like a natural return. If a forest could speak, it might not tell stories the way we do. It might not begin with "once upon a time" or end with a neat conclusion. A forest would likely speak in layers, ring by ring, season by season, slowly, patiently, without any need to hurry to the point. And in that sense, a forest already remembers, not with words, but with shapes. A hollow in a tree is one kind of memory. It tells you that time has passed here. Wind has visited. Rain has returned again and again. Branches have grown, shifted, and sometimes fallen away. Insects have done their quiet work. Fungi have softened what was once firm. And through it all, the tree has continued, standing, changing, becoming both older and more useful in a gentle way. A hollow is like a memory turned into shelter. It is the past made practical. It is yesterday's weather and last year's seasons shaping a room for tonight's rest. As we begin this section of wonder, let the idea expand. If a single hollow can hold so much quiet history, what else does the forest remember? It remembers where water likes to gather. Even in dry times, the land holds subtle dips and channels, places where rain has found its way for years, making soft paths that only the patient notice. It remembers where moss grows best, where shade lingers longer, where the air stays a little cooler. It remembers sunlight too. Some clearings exist because, long ago, a tree fell and made space, and now grasses rise there, and flowers return there, and the edges of the clearing hold a particular softness in the evening, like the forest's way of keeping a gentle window open. And the forest remembers lives, not as a list of names, but as traces. A worn deer path, a nest tucked into branches, an old snag used as a perch. The landscape holds these signs lightly, without clinging, without needing to preserve them forever. It simply carries them for a while, then lets them fade when it's time. Owls, in their quiet homes, are part of this remembering. Their resting places are not separate from the forest story. They are part of it. The hollow is shaped by time, used by life, then left to time again. And there is a calm teaching in that cycle. Things can matter deeply without needing to last in the same form forever. A home can change and still be a home. A season can pass and still leave something gentle behind. So tonight, as you rest, imagine your thoughts as leaves on the forest floor. They have had their day of movement. Now they can settle. The forest does not demand they stay bright and busy. It allows them to soften into quiet, and your mind can do the same, becoming a calm place where memory exists, but does not need to speak. There is a kind of intelligence in nature that does not resemble a textbook. It is not spoken. It is not written down. It does not announce itself with signs. It simply works. Shelter appears in the world as if the landscape has learned over time how to be kind. A hollow forms in an old tree, and it becomes a room. A thicket grows dense at the edge of a field, and it becomes a curtain. A rock overhang stands at the right angle, and it becomes a roof. None of this requires a planner. None of it requires a meeting, and yet it feels remarkably suitable, as if the land is quietly competent at caring for life. This is the intelligence of shelter. Not a single mind making decisions, but a whole system shaping possibilities. Trees grow, age, and soften. Storms prune branches. Insects and fungi recycle old wood into new openings. Grasses thicken and bend, offering cover. Stone fractures and shifts, creating niches. Wind and rain test every surface, and the landscape slowly learns which shapes hold and which shapes change. Owls, arriving in this world, do not need to build from scratch. They simply notice what is already offered. They select a hollow, a beam, a niche, a burrow, each one a ready-made solution shaped by countless small forces working patiently over time. This can feel almost poetic, the world providing rooms before anyone asks for them. And if you let that poetry become practical, it can also be soothing, because it suggests that support can exist without struggle. That comfort can be found rather than manufactured. That rest can be a matter of fit, not effort. Even in your own life, you may recognize this kind of quiet intelligence. A familiar chair that supports your back in just the right way. A certain time of evening when the house naturally becomes calmer. A routine that settles your mind without needing to be perfect. These are forms of shelter too, patterns that hold you. So tonight, consider that you are surrounded by shelter in more ways than you might notice at first. Walls that keep the air steady, a bed that holds your weight, a blanket that creates warmth, a quiet that thickens as the night deepens. You do not have to invent these supports. They already exist, ready to help you. And perhaps, like an owl choosing a hollow, you can simply accept them. Let your body fit into rest. Let your breath fit into quiet. Let your mind fit into softness. This is the intelligence of shelter, not forcing, not striving, just finding the place where you are gently held and letting that be enough. When we imagine an owl's home, a hollow tree, a sheltered niche, it is easy to picture the owl as the main character and the home as a simple backdrop. But the truth is calmer and more interconnected. An owl's home is often the result of many lives, many slow processes, many small presences that cooperated without intending to. A hollow tree is a perfect example. Long before an owl rests there, the tree has already been in conversation with the world. Rain has traveled down its bark in thin streams. Sun has warmed one side more than the other. Wind has leaned into branches and then let go. A limb may have broken long ago, leaving a scar that changed how water moved across the wood. Insects may have visited as part of their own quiet work, gently loosening old fibers. Fungi may have softened parts of the trunk, not as a dramatic event, but as a slow transformation, turning rigid wood into a more yielding texture. Birds may have pecked and explored. Small animals may have sheltered briefly. The tree itself may have continued growing around these changes, adapting, holding, standing. And then, eventually, there is space, a room, a hollow with a door. By the time an owl arrives, that hollow has already been shaped by a community of influences: weather, microbes, insects, time, and the tree's own steady life. This is cooperation without a meeting, cooperation without instructions, a quiet layering of contributions that results in something useful and gentle, a home. It can be soothing to think of nature working this way, because it reminds us that support does not always come from one source. Sometimes support comes from many small things adding up: a shade tree that cools the ground, a mossy patch that holds moisture, a thick leaf layer that softens sound, a curve of bark that deflects wind. Each detail is minor on its own, but together they create comfort. And you might notice the same kind of quiet cooperation in your own night. Your rest is supported by many small helpers: the steady surface beneath you, the temperature of the room, the dimness, the quiet, the familiar texture of fabric, the gentle rhythm of your breath. None of these alone needs to do all the work. Together, they make settling easier. So tonight, you can let yourself be supported by the many small cooperations around you. Let the room hold the air. Let the bed hold your body. Let the night hold the quiet. Let your breath hold the pace. And if your mind tries to take on the job of controlling everything, you can let it soften instead, remembering that nature often creates its gentlest homes through shared, patient effort. An owl does not thank every raindrop, every fungus thread, every gust of wind that helps shape its hollow. It simply rests. And you can do the same, just rest, held by many quiet helpers, all working together in the simplest way. Adaptation is one of nature's quiet arts. It doesn't usually arrive with fanfare. It arrives like a small adjustment you make in bed, turning a little to the side, pulling the blanket up by a few centimeters, finding the position that lets your body relax without thinking. Owls live by this kind of gentle adjustment. They do not insist that the world become different. They do not demand perfectly shaped rooms or carefully constructed furniture. Instead, they accept what the landscape offers, and they fit themselves into it with calm practicality. A hollow in a tree is not designed around an owl's body. It is simply a space created by time. And yet, an owl can enter that space and settle in as if it was always meant to be used that way. Wings tuck, feathers loosen. The curve of the owl's body matches the curve of the hollow, and the night feels a little more complete. This is adaptation as poetry. Not a dramatic change, but a graceful fit. It is the ability to become comfortable without needing perfection. Sometimes the owl's home is not even new. It may be an old nest built by another bird, reused with quiet permission. Or a barn beam that has held nothing but dust and moonlight for years, now becoming a resting place simply because it is there. Nature does this often. A fallen log becomes a bridge for small creatures. An old stump becomes a nursery for moss and fungi. A cracked rock holds rainwater in a shallow bowl, becoming a small drinking place. The world shifts from one use to another without complaint, without waste, without hurry. And when you sit with that, you may feel a soft lesson for your own life. Because humans sometimes approach rest like a project. We try to solve ourselves into sleep. We adjust the room, adjust the plan, adjust the schedule, adjust the mind. And while small comforts can help, the deeper ease often comes from something simpler, adapting to what is already here. Tonight, the night is already here. The quiet is already here, even if it is imperfect. Your bed is already here, doing its steady work of support. Your breath is already here, offering a rhythm you can follow without effort. So what if, instead of trying to make the moment ideal, you simply fit yourself into it? Let your shoulders soften into the position they naturally prefer. Let your jaw unclench as if it never needed to hold anything. Let your thoughts become like leaves that find their place on the forest floor, settling, overlapping, resting without needing arrangement. Adaptation, in this sense, is not giving up. It is letting go gently. It is allowing yourself to be comfortable inside reality, rather than trying to remake reality while you're tired. An owl doesn't ask the tree to change shape. It simply rests within the shape that exists. And you can do the same. You can rest within this night, exactly as it is, quiet enough, soft enough, and ready to hold you. A hollow in a tree can look like a small, dark room, but if you imagine it across time, across the gentle turning of seasons, it becomes something larger. Not larger in size, but larger in meaning, like a familiar place that holds many memories simply by continuing to exist. Picture the hollow in spring. The air smells faintly of damp soil and new growth. Rain is more frequent, but often softer, like the sky is practicing gentle repetition. The tree wakes in its own quiet way, buds appearing, leaves unfolding, a gradual thickening of green around the entrance. Light changes too. It filters through fresh leaves and arrives as a mild glow rather than a sharp beam. Inside the hollow, the air is cool and steady. It holds the calm of an indoor space, while the outside world becomes lively in its slow, natural manner. Now imagine summer. The canopy grows dense, shading the hollow's doorway more fully. The days are warmer, but the hollow stays relatively even, protected by the tree's thickness. The entrance might be framed by bright leaf shapes, and at night, insects offer their steady music. The hollow feels like a quiet room behind a curtain of green. Then autumn arrives. Leaves thin out and change color, becoming muted and earthy. Some fall and gather at the base of the trunk like a soft carpet. The air cools, and the nights stretch longer. The hollow becomes darker earlier in the evening, and the world outside feels less crowded with sound. Even the wind seems different, more noticeable, but still capable of being gentle. And then winter. The tree stands with fewer leaves, more exposed to sky. Cold air becomes sharper outside, but the hollow retains its sheltered character. The entrance looks like a dark eye in the trunk, steady and unchanged. Inside, the air is still, and that stillness feels especially comforting when the landscape is quiet and spare. What's remarkable is not that the seasons change, it's that the hollow remains. Not identical, never identical, but consistent in its purpose. A place of shelter, a place of pause, a place of rest. This is one of nature's soft comforts. So much changes, and yet some things continue to offer steadiness. And you may want that steadiness tonight, because your own life has seasons too. Busy stretches, quiet stretches, times that feel bright and full, times that feel dim and inward. Thoughts change, moods shift. The world outside your window turns and turns again. But you can have a hollow too, a resting place that remains. Not necessarily a physical space, though your bed can be that, but an inner space shaped by routine and gentleness, a quiet room in the mind where you return when you need softness. So tonight, imagine you are stepping into that hollow, not just for one night, but as part of a longer rhythm. The season of today can be whatever it is, and still, this moment can hold you, steady, dim, and calm, like a hollow tree that quietly keeps offering rest year after year. Darkness is often misunderstood. People sometimes treat it as an absence, as if night is simply what happens when the day leaves. But in the wild, darkness feels more like a presence, like something that arrives gently and covers the landscape in a quieter texture. Night is not empty. Night is a blanket. It lowers the brightness of everything. It softens edges. It reduces the need to see clearly. It invites the world to become less detailed and more forgiving. And for many creatures, owls included, this is not a problem to solve. It is comfort. Imagine the forest at night. During the day, every leaf has a separate identity. Every branch has a sharp outline. Every distant object asks to be recognized and named. But after dark, the world becomes simpler. The trees become a single dark presence. The field becomes a calm expanse. The sky becomes a wide, quiet roof. This simplification is soothing. It is as if the night says, you don't have to process everything right now. You don't have to keep track of every detail. You can let the mind relax its grip. An owl's home depends on this. A hollow tree is made cozier by darkness. A barn beam becomes safer when shadows gather. A rock niche feels more private when the night lowers the visual noise of the landscape. Even an owl's own body seems designed to harmonize with this blanket of night. Colors muted, patterns soft, presence subtle. The owl does not fight darkness. It rests inside it as if it were always meant to. And you, tonight, can rest inside darkness too. Even if your room is not fully dark, the evening still brings a dimming. Screens can be put away, lamps can be lowered, curtains can be drawn. The world can become less visually demanding. If you are listening with eyes open, let them soften. You don't need to focus. You don't need to look hard at anything. If you are listening with eyes closed, allow the darkness behind your eyelids to feel like fabric, soft even, calm. Darkness also changes time. It slows the feeling of minutes. It reduces the sense of next. It makes the present moment feel wider, like a long stretch of quiet road with no need to arrive anywhere. So as you breathe, imagine night settling over you the way a blanket settles. Not heavy, just present. A gentle covering that warms without pressing. A soft layer that tells the nervous system, it's okay to stop scanning. It's okay to rest. And if your thoughts are still a little bright tonight, if they flicker with plans or memories, let the darkness dim them gently, not by force, just by repetition. Inhale, the blanket lifts slightly. Exhale, the blanket settles again, over and over, quiet and steady, until the mind becomes less sharp and sleep begins to feel like the most natural thing in the world. An owl does not carry the day into its home. It does not bring a long list of daylight concerns and set them down in the corner. It does not replay old moments beneath the rafters. It does not rehearse tomorrow inside a hollow tree. It simply arrives and releases. There's a gentle wisdom in that. Because for many of us, the hardest part of rest is not the body. The body often knows exactly what it wants: softness, warmth, stillness, time. The harder part is the mind, which sometimes tries to keep the day alive even when the lights are low. So tonight, we can learn from owl homes in a quiet, practical way. A hollow tree is more than a shelter. It is a boundary. It marks the end of movement and the beginning of settling. When an owl enters, the world outside becomes quieter by design. Wind is muted. Sounds are softened. Light is reduced to a faint rim at the doorway. Inside, there is less to respond to, less to manage, less to think about. And that is what letting go often requires. Fewer openings for the day to rush back in. So imagine your own resting place as an owl home. The door is not a physical door, but a gentle threshold you can cross with your breath. Each slow inhale is a step inward. Each long exhale is a release of something unnecessary. You might start with the simplest letting go. Let go of the need to keep your face ready. Allow your brow to smooth. Let your eyes rest in their sockets. Let the muscles around your mouth soften as if they no longer need to hold expression. Then let go of the hands. Hands often carry the day in small ways. Tension in the fingers, tightness in the palms, a faint readiness to type or grip or do. Let the hands become quiet objects resting on fabric. Then let go of the shoulders. Let them drop a fraction, then another fraction, until it feels as though the shoulders are no longer supporting the whole day. And when thoughts arrive, because they may, treat them like sounds outside a hollow tree. You can hear them faintly and still remain inside. You don't have to answer. You don't have to chase. You don't have to solve. Owl homes teach us that rest is not a reward you earn by finishing everything. Rest is a rhythm you return to by stepping behind the boundary of quiet. So tonight, let the day remain outside. Let it exist at a distance, like weather in the far trees. And inside your small, sheltered room of night, allow your breath to become the only task, steady, slow, and kind, until letting go feels less like an effort and more like a natural return. Sometimes we think of home as somewhere we have to travel to, a long drive, a long day, a long series of steps that eventually ends at a familiar door. But in the quiet logic of nature, home can also be something you enter without distance. An owl does not need a complicated journey to come home. Often, it needs only a short glide from one dark place to another. A small shift from open air to sheltered space. A simple movement from exposure to cover. And for us, too, home can be a feeling we practice. Not a location necessarily, though a location helps, but a state the body recognizes when it is allowed to soften. If you listen carefully, you may notice that your nervous system is always looking for small signals of home. The steady pressure of a mattress, the weight of a blanket, the familiar temperature of your room, the quiet sounds that repeat each night like a gentle refrain. These signals are not dramatic. They are subtle, and that is why they work so well. They do not stimulate the mind. They reassure the body. So tonight, consider that you can return home in small increments. You can return home by relaxing your jaw. You can return home by letting your tongue rest comfortably in your mouth. You can return home by allowing your breath to slow, not as a technique, but as a response to safety. In nature, many homes are not enclosed by walls. They are enclosed by conditions: dimness, shelter, quiet, steadiness. In that way, home is less about architecture and more about atmosphere, and you can build atmosphere from the inside. If your day feels close, if it is still hovering near your thoughts, try this gentle reframe. You do not need to push the day away. You only need to stop inviting it in. Each time your mind reaches for a problem, let your attention return to the texture of the present moment, the fabric near your skin, the air at your nostrils, the slow lift and fall of your breathing. That is returning home, a quiet return, a return without distance. And if you want an image to carry with you, imagine a hollow tree again. The outside world exists, but it becomes less relevant the moment you enter the shelter. The doorway is small. The interior is dim. The air is still. The sound is softened. Everything about the space says, you can stop now. Let your bed become that interior. Let your blanket become the boundary. Let your breath become the familiar scent of home. Then, without any big transition, without any complicated effort, you can arrive. Not later, now. Home, in this sense, is simply the moment your body believes it is safe enough to rest. And tonight, you can let that belief settle in gently, one breath at a time. Earlier, beneath the leaves, we asked a quiet question. What does a home truly offer in the wild? Now, after moving through hollows, beams, burrows, and niches, after watching the night soften edges and the landscape provide shelter, we can return to the question with a calmer mind. A home offers shelter, yes, but not only from weather, not only from wind and rain. A home offers shelter from insistence. It creates a place where the world does not demand your attention every second. A place where sound is softened, where light is reduced, where motion becomes optional. In the owl's world, this is essential. A hollow tree gives the owl darkness and still air. A barn loft gives height and steady structure. A rock niche offers a firm boundary that blocks the wind. A burrow offers the quiet steadiness of the ground. Each home, in its own way, offers the same deeper gift: permission. Permission to stop moving. Permission to be unseen. Permission to be unbothered. And if you sit with that, you may notice how much of your own tiredness comes not from the day's tasks, but from the day's constant invitations to respond. Messages, decisions, sounds, lights, small demands that keep the mind slightly awake even when the body is ready to rest. A home, then, is not just a place. It is a reduction, a narrowing of inputs, a gentle dimming of the world. That is why owl homes feel so soothing to imagine. They are designed by nature, by time, by quiet practicality, to make the world smaller and calmer. And tonight, your own resting place can do the same for you. Not perfectly, not absolutely, but enough. Your room reduces the world. Your bed reduces effort. Your blanket reduces exposure. Your closed eyes reduce detail. And your slow breathing reduces urgency. So if we answer the question simply, in the softest voice, a home offers the chance to return to yourself, to let the mind stop scanning, to let the body become heavy in the best way, to let the night hold you without explanation. And perhaps that is the most important offering of all. A home offers a place where you can be quiet without needing to justify it. So as you settle now, let the question resolve into something gentle and usable. Home offers rest. Home offers stillness. Home offers the simple truth that you are allowed to stop. And in that permission, sleep can begin to arrive, quietly, naturally, like an owl folding into shadow, safe behind a doorway made for peace. The night does not explain itself. It simply arrives, and in arriving, it changes the world in quiet, practical ways. Brightness lowers, sounds soften, movement becomes less necessary. The landscape turns from a place of doing into a place of being. Owls move easily within this change, not because the night is better than day, but because the night offers a different set of conditions, ones that support stillness. And as we gather simple conclusions from the owl's way of living, we can keep them just as simple, just as gentle. One conclusion is this: less can be enough. An owl's home does not need to be large. It does not need to be decorated. It does not need to be perfect. It only needs to fit the body and soften the world. In that fitting, comfort becomes possible. Another conclusion is this: quiet is not emptiness. Quiet is a kind of support. It holds the mind the way a hollow tree holds still air. It reduces what presses in. It makes space for the nervous system to relax. Quiet is not nothing. Quiet is something helpful. And another conclusion: rest is not a reward. It is a rhythm. Owls do not finish all the night's work before resting. They rest because resting is part of living. Their bodies return to stillness the way tides return to shore, naturally, without apology. These conclusions do not need to become rules for you. They can simply become gentle companions tonight. If your mind is busy, remember, less can be enough. You do not need to solve everything to rest. If your environment is not perfectly silent, remember, quiet is not emptiness. Even a soft hum, even distant sounds, can become part of a calm background. If you feel like you should be more productive before sleep, remember, rest is not a reward. It is part of your natural cycle. And perhaps the simplest conclusion of all is this: a safe place changes your breathing. When the body feels sheltered, physically or emotionally, breath lengthens, shoulders drop, the face softens, the mind begins to drift rather than grip. So tonight, let your bed be your shelter. Let your blanket be your hollow. Let your room be your dim, quiet boundary. Let your breath be the proof that you are safe enough to stop. There is nothing you need to achieve in this moment, only a steady return, exhale by exhale, into a calmer state where the night can do what it does best. Not push, not demand, just hold. And in that holding, let the simplest conclusion settle into you like a soft weight. You are allowed to rest. Now we can begin to notice the world doing what it naturally does as the night deepens, not suddenly, not dramatically, but steadily, as if the entire landscape is learning how to become quiet. Imagine the wind first. Earlier, it may have moved more freely, brushing leaves and shifting branches, but now it slows. It changes from a moving presence into a softer suggestion. It becomes the kind of breeze that you feel more than you hear, cool air touching the skin and then passing on. The leaves respond. Their whisper thins out. The motion becomes smaller. The whole canopy seems to settle, like fabric falling into place after being lifted. In the field, Grasses sway less. They still move, but more slowly, as if rocking themselves. The sound of their movement becomes a faint hush, like a distant ocean heard through a wall. Even the insects adjust. Some continue their steady rhythm, but the chorus becomes more even, less busy. Not louder, not quieter necessarily, just smoother, like a gentle line of sound that you can float on. And above it all, the sky looks wider, not because it changed, but because your attention has changed. You are no longer scanning for details. You are no longer measuring the night. You are simply allowing it to exist, and in doing so, you feel its spaciousness. This is what it means for the world to quiet around you. It is less about everything stopping and more about everything softening. And as the outer world softens, you can let your inner world soften too. Let your eyelids rest as if they are heavy curtains. Let your jaw unclench as if the day's conversations have already ended. Let your shoulders sink as if gravity has become kinder. Let your breath move in its own slow tide. Inhale and exhale, without any need to control it. If a thought appears, notice it the way you might notice a distant sound. You do not chase it. You do not amplify it. You simply register it, then let it fade into the background. Because the mind, like the world, quiets best when it is not forced. It quiets through repetition, through steady breath, through soft attention, through the simple environment of dimness and stillness. So tonight, let it feel as if the world is quieting on your behalf, as if the wind slowed because you needed it, as if the leaves softened their whisper because your thoughts were ready to soften too, as if the whole night leaned closer, not to demand anything, but to hold the space of rest. And in that quieting, sleep can become less like a destination and more like a natural settling, like dusk becoming night without anyone needing to make it happen. A threshold is usually a place of transition, a doorway, an edge, a line you cross from one space into another. But as the night deepens, the threshold itself can become something else. It can become a resting place. It can become a pillow. Think again of the hollow tree's entrance. At first, it was simply the boundary between outside and inside, a dark opening, a curved doorway. But now, in the softer hours of night, that boundary feels gentler, less like a dividing line and more like a cushion, something that helps you settle. The world outside is still present. Wind still exists. Distant sounds still drift through the landscape, but they arrive softened, as if the threshold has learned how to filter them, like a curtain that lets air through but keeps brightness out, like a blanket that warms without pressing. This is the feeling we are moving toward now. Not a sharp switch into sleep, a soft landing, a gradual change where wakefulness does not end so much as it relaxes its grip. If you notice your body, you may feel this soft landing already beginning. Your breathing may feel lower in the chest, more settled. Your limbs may feel heavier, not in a burdensome way, but in a restful way, like they have permission to be supported. Your face may feel simpler, as if it no longer needs to express anything. And the mind, too, may begin to sink, not into blankness, but into a calmer, looser state where thoughts are slower, less sticky, more like drifting clouds. So imagine your bed as the owl's threshold, not the bed as a place to think or plan, but as the doorway into stillness. And imagine that doorway padded with softness, pillows, blankets, dim air, the steady hush of your room. With each exhale, you lean more fully into that softness. With each inhale, you gather only what you need: air, calm, a steady rhythm, nothing else. If you like, you can repeat a simple idea quietly in your mind, like a lullaby with no melody. Here's one that fits the night. I am safe enough to rest. No need to force it, no need to insist. Just a gentle repetition, like wind moving through grasses and slow waves. And now, the threshold becomes a pillow. The transition becomes a place to pause. The doorway becomes a soft surface your attention can rest upon. And from there, it is easy, almost inevitable, for sleep to arrive. Not as something you chase, but as something you allow. A soft landing, a quiet settling, a final gentle easing into the dark comfort of night. Now the story begins to dissolve into pure calm, not with an ending that snaps shut, but with a dimming, like a lantern turned down slowly until the room is mostly shadow, and shadow feels kind. Imagine an owl resting now, no longer arriving, no longer choosing, no longer adjusting, simply resting. The feathers lie in gentle layers, like soft leaves stacked in careful quiet. The body becomes a shape that the night recognizes, a presence that does not need to move. Outside, the landscape continues its slow rhythms. A breeze may still pass through branches, but it feels distant now, like movement behind a closed curtain. A few sounds remain: an insect's steady line of music, the faint settling of wood, the soft hush of leaves. But they are no longer information. They are simply the background of night, smooth and unthreatening. The light, if there is any, is faint. Moonlight does not flood a hollow tree. It touches only the rim. It makes a thin silver edge on bark, a gentle highlight on moss, a quiet glimmer on the curve of a branch. And that is enough, because in this part of the night, the world does not need to be fully seen. It only needs to be felt. Fading light is a kind of kindness. It reduces the mind's habit of watching and naming. It invites the nervous system to stop scanning. It tells the body that it can become heavy, that it can be supported, that it can let go. So notice your own fading light. Whether your room is dim or dark, allow your eyes to soften. If they are open, let them unfocus without effort. If they are closed, let the darkness behind your eyelids become a soft surface, like fabric. And notice the steady feathers in this scene. They are not only the owl's feathers, they are also an image of steadiness, of something settled and held. You can imagine your blanket as steady feathers resting over you. You can imagine your bed as the hollow tree floor, quiet, supportive, unchanged. You can imagine your breath as the owl's calm rhythm, slow, even, unforced. Inhale, a gentle lift. Exhale, a soft settling. If a thought wanders through, let it pass like a faint shadow across the entrance of the hollow. You do not need to follow it. You do not need to understand it. You can let it drift on, leaving the inside of your mind dim and quiet again. Because at this point, the story is not asking you to listen closely. It is asking you to rest. Fading light, steady feathers, a world that continues softly outside, while you remain held inside. And within that steady holding, sleep can deepen naturally, the way night deepens without effort, one quiet breath at a time. The night has a way of repeating itself, not in a boring way, but in a soothing way, like a familiar lullaby that becomes more comforting each time it returns. A breeze moves through old wood, a leaf shifts and settles, a soft sound appears and fades, and the repetition becomes a kind of gentle reassurance. Everything is steady, everything is continuing, everything is calm enough. Picture an old barn now. The wood has held many seasons. It has listened to rain, to wind, to the quiet cooling of evening after warm days. In the dark, the barn feels less like a building and more like a shelter-shaped shadow, steady, simple, patient. Somewhere high in the rafters, an owl rests. No movement, just presence. And when a breeze finds its way through a small gap in the boards, it does not rush in. It drifts. It moves like a slow ribbon of air, brushing past beams and then disappearing again. Old wood receives the breeze gently. A small creak may appear, not sharp, not alarming, more like the building exhaling in its sleep. Dust motes shift in moonlight. The air turns slightly cooler, then steadies again. This is the kind of motion that does not disturb rest. It supports it, because it reminds the body that the world can move without requiring you to move with it. You can let the breeze do the traveling. You can remain still. So as you listen, imagine your own room as old wood, stable, quiet, able to hold small changes in temperature and sound without needing to react. If there is a faint draft, let it feel like a lullaby. If there is a distant sound, let it be part of the night's soft texture. If your thoughts attempt to rise, let them be like dust motes, floating briefly, then settling again. And if you want a simple practice to follow, let it be this. With each inhale, imagine the breeze entering gently. With each exhale, imagine the breeze leaving gently. No force, no urgency, just a slow exchange that keeps the room of your mind aired out and calm. Owls are excellent at this kind of quiet allowance. They do not demand perfect stillness from the world. They simply find a place where the world's movement is softened enough to ignore. And you can do the same. Let the small motions of your environment remain small. Let them pass through like a breeze through old wood. Let them remind you that you are safe, sheltered, and free to rest. And in that steady shelter, allow your breathing to become even slower, even smoother, even more distant from the day, until sleep feels like the natural next step, and your mind is content to drift. Even as you rest, the wild continues, not loudly, not dramatically, in a soft, steady manner, like a slow tide that keeps moving whether you watch it or not. The night has rhythms. They are not schedules on a clock, but patterns that feel older than clocks. Wind rising and easing, insects singing in gentle waves, temperature shifting by small degrees, clouds drifting across the moon in unhurried motion. Owls are part of these rhythms, but they do not control them. They simply belong to them. An owl resting in a hollow tree does not need to track the night minute by minute. It does not need to measure. It does not need to plan. The night's patterns continue outside the doorway, and the owl remains inside, calm, knowing the world will keep turning without requiring its attention. This is a deeply restful truth. You do not have to supervise the night. You do not have to manage the world while you sleep. You are allowed to let the rhythms continue without you. So imagine for a moment the landscape beyond your room. Somewhere, a tree stands in darkness and its leaves shift softly. Somewhere, water moves, river, lake, tide, quietly continuing its slow work. Somewhere, a small animal curls into warmth and stillness. Somewhere, an owl rests in a sheltered place, and the night holds it gently. These images are not meant to energize the mind. They are meant to reassure it, because the mind sometimes stays awake out of a subtle belief that it must keep watch, keep thinking, keep scanning, keep holding the day together. But the wild does not ask this of you. The rhythms continue regardless, so you can let your attention loosen. Let it drift away from problem solving. Let it drift away from planning. Let it drift toward the simplest rhythm you already have. Breathing. Inhale, a small rise. Exhale, a soft return. If you feel your mind tightening around a thought, imagine that thought floating downstream on a night river. It doesn't need to be pushed. It doesn't need to be argued with. It simply moves, carried by a rhythm larger than itself. And you, resting here, can allow your own rhythms to become simpler too. Heartbeat steady, breath slow, muscles quiet, eyes at rest. The night's rhythms continue, and you do not need to participate. You are not required to be awake for them to be real. You are not responsible for keeping them going. The wild can flow through itself, the way it always has, and you can sleep in that motion, held by the calm certainty that everything continues softly, even as you let go. Rest is not only something we do at the end of a busy day. In the wild, rest is a skill, a quiet ability, a practiced rhythm, a natural talent shared across many lives, large and small, each one learning when to soften, when to settle, when to stop moving and simply be held by the night. An owl shows this skill beautifully. It doesn't treat rest as an afterthought. It doesn't treat stillness as wasted time. It treats resting as part of living, as essential as breathing, as natural as the turning of the seasons through a hollow tree. When an owl returns to its home, whether it is a tree cavity, a barn beam, a cliff niche, or a quiet burrow, it does not argue with tiredness. It does not negotiate with the night. It recognizes the moment when motion can end, and it accepts that moment with calm simplicity. That acceptance is a kind of wisdom. Humans often complicate rest. We worry about whether we've earned it. We plan how long it should last. We judge ourselves for being awake, for being tired, for thinking too much, for not thinking enough. We treat sleep like a task with a score. But in the wild, rest has no score. It is simply a return to balance. It is the body's way of renewing its quiet resources. It is the mind's way of loosening its grip. It is the nervous system's way of remembering what safety feels like. So tonight, consider that you are doing something very natural. You are practicing a wild skill. You are joining an ancient pattern that predates cities and calendars. The pattern of dimming, settling, and letting the world continue without your attention. You can picture it as a wide community of rest. Somewhere in a forest, a bird tucks its head beneath a wing. Somewhere in tall grass, a small animal curls into the warm center of its own body. Somewhere on a quiet rock, a creature becomes still, letting the cold air pass overhead. Somewhere in a hollow tree, an owl rests with steady feathers, safe behind a doorway made of bark and shadow. And here, in your own quiet space, you are doing the same. You are not failing if sleep has not arrived yet. You are simply practicing. Each slow breath is practice. Each softened muscle is practice. Each time you allow a thought to drift away without chasing it, that is practice too. Rest is a skill that improves through kindness, not through force, not through urgency, just through repetition, softness, and permission. So give yourself permission now. Permission to be quiet. Permission to be imperfect. Permission to let this night hold you, even if your mind wanders a little before it settles. Because you already know this skill deep down. Your body remembers. And as you continue breathing slowly, steady, calm, unforced, rest can deepen, like dusk turning into night, without anyone needing to make it happen. Now we can let the story become very simple. The landscape remains, but it is distant. The details fade. The mind no longer needs to hold images clearly. It can let them blur into a gentle background, like moonlight diffused through thin cloud. If you still picture the owl, it is resting now, not listening in a focused way, not watching, just being, settled into its chosen place, held by wood or stone or quiet air. A hollow tree feels like a closed room made of bark. A barn loft feels like a dim shelter filled with stillness. A rock niche feels like a calm pocket under stars. And in all of them, the same thing happens. The world continues softly outside, and inside there is rest. Let your attention do the same. Let it move inward, not into effort, into softness. If you notice your body, you may sense how little it needs right now. Perhaps only warmth, perhaps only a comfortable position, perhaps only the steady rhythm of your breath. Inhale, gently. Exhale, longer. Each exhale can feel like a small release into darkness, like setting something down on the forest floor and walking away without looking back. If a thought returns, treat it as a leaf drifting across a field in moonlight. It passes, it settles, it becomes part of the night's quiet texture, not a demand. The night does not insist. The owl does not insist, and you do not need to insist either. Simply remain here, breathing, letting everything become less sharp, less detailed, less urgent, more like water, more like wind, more like the slow, steady rhythm that carries all living things into rest. And as we close, let these final words arrive like a soft, familiar refrain, like a last gentle breeze through old wood, like a quiet tide at night. Everything flows through the wild. Sleep in that motion. Everything flows through the wild. Sleep in that motion. And now, there is nothing more you need to do. Just rest.